Hi, today we're going to talk about the Chinese meaning of alcohol, or in other words, the Chinese drinking culture. This presentation will be given by four students of Group D, of which three Belgian students, Lara Piers, Martijn Geusens, and Shivam Salary, and one Chinese student, Jiaji Wang. We conducted an experiment to learn more about the Chinese drinking culture. What we did was organize an encounter, which was a party with four Belgian students and seven Chinese students. We observed how the Chinese students interacted with each other, with the Belgian students, and how they drank. So, which alcohol they drank? Was it only Chinese alcohol, or was it also Belgian alcohol? And we looked at their drinking habits actually. But we didn't only observe, we also asked them questions about their drinking habits, about the general drinking habits in China, to learn more about their culture. We should remark that it wasn't really an interview because there was a laid back setting actually. It was not a formal interview setting. So not all students got the same questions or the same questions formulated in the same way. So we can't say that it was a real interview, but it was more a general conversation. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how do Chinese drink, with whom they drink, how open they are toward other cultures, like for example the Western culture. We're going to give you some remarks, so what we saw and what went wrong, and how to improve it if we would repeat the experiment. We will also give you a link to the course. So how does our experiment relate to the course material? We're also going to give you a view of the results from the perspective of Chinese. And we'll finish off the presentation with a conclusion. So the first thing we're going to discuss is how do Chinese drink. It is a common stereotype to think that Chinese can't drink. This is because of the way that Chinese people are portrayed in the Western media. They're often portrayed as poor drinkers. That's why the Belgian students that were present at the party thought the Chinese students wouldn't be able to hold their drink, but they were quickly proven wrong because the Chinese students were drinking at a faster rate than the Belgian students did. And that's why we can say that this statement is false. But there are actually two reasons to explain the situation. First reason is also mentioned in the book Intercultural Communication and in the chapter about cultural refugee. And the reason is actually that the Belgian students weren't aware of the influence of their own Western media on their perception of people of other cultures. So, in this example, people of the Chinese culture. The second reason is that in China they have a certain tradition called Hanbei, which means try glass, where you have to drink up your whole drink every time you touch someone else's glass during a toast. So when your glass touches someone else's glass, you have to drink up your whole drink. And it was actually a sign of respect. So the Chinese students during the party were drinking up the whole drink every time we did a toast, and they were just showing respect towards us. And they followed actually also different other rules, like they were showing drinking courage, which is a very important rule in China. So they drank up the drinks they were served. So drinking courage means drinking up the drink that is given to you by the host. Third rule they followed was they showed drinking capacity. So they drank their drinks and were able to hold their drink, what is also really important. If you look at all these rules, it's like you're almost pushed by the Chinese drinking culture to drink a lot, and it's almost like you're expected to be drunk. So we asked the Chinese students about this, and they told us that in China you're expected to be drunk at parties. You're expected to drink a lot, and that is completely normal. It's like showing respect towards someone else, and being drunk isn't a real problem. and we thought it was kind of strange. Certainly because they told us that even at a party, an official function with your boss, you're expected to be drunk. So that was kind of strange. So we looked it up and we did some research, and we found out that they weren't exaggerating, and that it was really true, and that was really strange. So it was kind of a strange encounter, and so we succeeded in our goal to meet strangeness during our encounter.
So the next question we asked ourselves was with whom they drink. First, we looked at who was invited at the party. That were all students at Group T, all about the same age, but they all come from different parts of China. It's also interesting of noticing that also a girl was invited, so it means they don't have a problem at all with mixing genders when going out for a drink. But of course, they are in a foreign country, so they don't really know a lot of people. So we asked them with whom they would drink if they were back home. Apparently, it depends a lot on the occasion and place, but it will mostly be with friends and family. It's also important to know that drinking is quite new for them because the legal drinking age in China is 18, and they really don't drink before because most families are really strict, and they have to pass exam to enter college, so there are really important tests. So then don't really have the time to go out either before they're 18. That doesn't really have to be a reason for drinking. If, for example, they have had a long day in school or at work, it happens that they just take a drink at home, and most of the time their parents will join. What they like a lot to do in China too is to karaoke. They would take drinks there and sing, and that's something they will do mostly with friends. Well, where they drink a lot too is at big family gatherings. It's almost mandatory for them to drink. That's something to do with the Genbei culture explained earlier. They really have to show respect to the rest of their families. But next to friends and family, it also happens that they drink with people they hardly know, like other students or colleagues. This is really interesting because apparently they can enter a bar as strangers and come out as almost best friends. This has also something to do with the Genbei culture because they will, by drinking a lot, they will show the other one that they have respect for them. So it can really be the start of a new friendship, and we can conclude that it really brings people together. And finally, we could also observe that they are really open to other people joining and drinking with people they don't know. For example, there was another Chinese girl living in the building where the party was at, and during the party they went up to a room and invited her to join us. And moreover, they were very open towards the Belgian students, though they didn't know them at all. They were very friendly and had a lot to share.
When we were looking at their openness towards the Western drinking culture, we focused on three aspects: the openness towards the drinking games, the openness towards the alcohol, and the openness towards the snacks. During the event we organized, we noticed that the Chinese people who we invited were really open towards other cultures. We prepared some drinking games that were not natural from their drinking culture, and they were instantly interested in playing these games. The games we played were Circle of Death and Beer Pong. The reason we know that these are not traditional drinking games is because we asked them. When playing these games, the Chinese students also acted really enthusiastic. It is hard to make any conclusions based on the fact on the choice of alcohol. Apart from their own traditional drinks, they mostly drank beer. But we have read on the internet that beer nowadays is also something traditional in China. The beer we served, however, was Belgium Jupiler. It turned out that these traditional alcohols weren't even that common for everyone, and some of them had never tasted it before this party. We should also note that all these people may have been open towards this alcohol because they were already open towards the party itself. So these people might have just been people that are open to a lot of things. The same cannot really be said about the traditional party snacks. The snacks that GI served as traditional snacks weren't really liked by all the Chinese students. For example, not everybody of them liked the dried bamboo, because it was something that is bonded to specific regions within China. Although there were also snacks that they all had in common. We asked them which drinking snack is really essential to be served during the drinking. They all agreed that salted peanuts are a must. We, however, only served peanuts with a crusty crust around them and chips. None of the Chinese students ate from them, and they rather ate the dried bamboo that they didn't usually eat. So they weren't really as open towards new snacks as they were open towards other sorts of alcohol. With this, we should note that we, who organized the party and studied the event, didn't really stress the presence of these snacks as often as we did on the alcohol. The most specific talk we had about one of the snacks in particular was about these pieces of bamboo. It was during our conversation about this that everybody tried it. Later on, they just kept eating it. With the research we did, it is also important to make some remarks. Some of these remarks might have been already made earlier within this presentation, but it is important to come back on these remarks and stress them a little bit more. The first fact, or the first thing we want to make a remark about, is the fact that these Chinese people already showed up. So this means that the Chinese people that showed up were already open towards Western people and their drinking culture because they were aware that they were going to drink with these Western students. This means that these Chinese people might have not been a complete representation of the Chinese people in general. Another fact is that when we did research, we read that young Chinese people are like Western students when they are around them. So we should know or keep in mind that these students might have just adapted their drinking style. The third fact is the fact that these Chinese students were all already living in Belgium for quite some time now, so they might have just adapted their living style in general.
We can link the encounter to the three concepts of the course. We can first link it to otherization and more specifically to cultural dealing, because the Chinese students changed their behavior when in company of the Belgian students. Instead of following the traditional rules, they behaved according to the image they have of the Western culture. By this, I mean drinking a lot without real meaning. Then we can also link it to the theme representation. Chinese people are mostly portrayed as poor drinkers in the media. That representation led the Belgian students to believe that the Chinese wouldn't be able to drink as much. They weren't aware of the fact that their own Western media influences the way they saw Chinese people. The situation is comparable to the story of Marta and Risa in the unit Cultural Refugee. And finally, it can also be linked to the theme identity. The Chinese students exaggerated a part of their culture by bringing and eating bamboo, even if it's not something they eat a lot in China, and some of them didn't even try it before. This is a typical example of the unit artifacts of culture, and more specifically the story of Zhang and Ming.
So, from the impression and investigations of a Chinese students, the traditional drinking party among Chinese is showing kind of hierarchy and respect among participants. Usually in a drinking party, people with lower position or status would take the initiative to toast with the ones with higher positions. Let's say B is the superior of A in the workplace. In a drinking party, A is going to toast with B. A will say something good to B, like some good wishes or congratulates. Then they will toast. A drink all his wine in his cup to show his respect, but B doesn't need to drink it all. Interestingly, as long as B accepts A's toast and holds his cup up, he also shows respect to A. That's bi-directional respect in this case, and also shows the pecking in a drinking party. This is the traditional way of Chinese drinking parties among working adults. However, people in different age stages drink differently. As for party among youth in China, that would be much different and more open. Most Chinese teenagers tend to drink with their good friends. They would really enjoy party and do what friends do, like sing karaoke and play games, and share their true feelings only when they drink with friends. So some will even refuse to drink with strangers. As participants in our party were all under 25, we would focus on this type of party. But we can see here, they behave differently depending on their companions. And they also behave differently depending on occasions. They would behave themselves in serious situations and be more relaxed in casual ones. The results from our observation and conversations were a great shock. Before the party started, all my Chinese friends chose to sit and chat in my room upstairs, but not to chat with the Belgians downstairs. However, later they were all open to Belgian-style party and drink freely. Everyone was pretty engaged in the party, having fun in games and also drinking itself. During the period of our drinking party, a number of interesting findings was observed, even from the perspective of a Chinese student. We observed carefully how Chinese students drank and how open they were, and afterwards asked who they would like to drink with. The results were totally different from our expectations. In the party, the Chinese participants were still fully engaged into the party and drinking as much as they wanted. Though Chinese do prefer drinking with close friends in some occasions, everyone is welcomed to drink with them, especially in such an informal and casual party. Chinese students showed great openness to foreign drinking culture and are willing to adapt their way of drinking into a Belgian style. That would always show their open minds to cultural dealing issues, while at the same time they were still conservative to keep in their own culture, for example, preferring Chinese snacks. And that's all about our project. Thanks for listening. 感谢您的收听。